They say Ashford Hills is the kind of place where nothing ever happens. Neighbors wave politely, lawns are trimmed twice a week, and smiles stretch a little too wide at Saturday morning soccer games. But if you stay long enough, you'll learn that behind every closed curtain, someone's hiding something. For Clara, Ashford Hills felt less like paradise and more like a cage. She was only 27, the youngest wife on her street, married to Daniel Higgins, a man 15 years older. He was wealthy and respected, the kind of man who could buy her anything. He owned a few dealerships across town, and he loved sponsoring charity events, anything that put his business in a positive light. Their house was the kind people always slowed down to look at. Vaulted ceilings that seemed to stretch into the sky, polished marble floors that reflected the light like water, and chandeliers that glittered like diamonds. The living room was curated like a magazine spread, plush sectional couches in cream tones, glass tables with perfectly stacked coffee table books, and walls lined with abstract art in muted golds and blues. Upstairs, a walk-in closet stood like a boutique showroom, lined with shelves of designer handbags and rows of shoes arranged with military precision. Even the hallways, with their Persian rugs and magical lighting washing everything in a warm golden glow, whispered of luxury. From the outside, it was perfect. And so was Clara's life, or at least that's what everyone thought. You see, Daniel was kind, and he provided for her in every way possible. But inside the bedroom, true intimacy had long since vanished. Not because he was disinterested in his young, beautiful wife, but because of his condition, something they rarely spoke of. The silence, however, had left a deep fracture in their marriage. On this particular Sunday evening, after returning home from dinner, Clara thought it would be the perfect time to enjoy the jacuzzi. The night sky, painted in hues of orange and purple, wrapped her in quiet comfort, and the water shimmered under the soft glow of the patio lights, steam curling gently into the night air. "What do you say?" she told her husband. "We can have some Merlot. You can give me a back rub and who knows." She gave her husband a playful kiss, biting his lower lip. "Maybe you'll get lucky." He smiled, the expression touched with a hint of sadness. But before he could speak, Clara was already unbuttoning his shirt. She drew him through the living room with muffled urgency, their clothes falling in a careless trail behind them. "Are you sure?" Daniel said. "It's getting late and I'm kind of tired." "Don't worry, babe. I'll take care of you. Just relax. I'll go get the wine." She guided him gently into the hot water, where the rising bubbles softened the tension. The stress of the week melted away as the steady hum of the jets wrapped the evening in a cocoon of serenity. Clara took a wine bottle from the cabinet, filled a bucket with ice, and carried out 2 glasses. She stepped out of the house fully bare, tiptoeing across the lawn with a mischievous smile, wondering if the neighbors would catch a glimpse. A soft giggle escaped her lips as she slipped into the bubbling water, the warmth rising to meet her skin. Daniel kept his gaze down, fighting the pull of desire. Clara placed the glasses in his hands, her touch lingering just long enough to make him falter. "Here, help me." He held the glasses while his wife poured the wine. He handed one to her and tapped his gently against hers. Clara took a slow sip, then nestled into Daniel's arm. He kissed the top of her head before drinking from his own glass. Clara guided his arm closer, making sure his forearm slid between her breasts, pressing him against her with a tenderness that carried a spark of urgency. But just as his fingers dug inside her, feeling a different kind of heat, Daniel stiffened and pulled away. With a suddenness that startled her, he rose from the water, leaving her alone, her longing fading into the quiet night air. That night, she stared at the ceiling, biting down on her lip, hard enough to leave a mark. She wondered if this was all her life would ever amount to: half-finished caresses, desire snuffed out before it burned, and the slow ache of remorse that consumed her long after. She hardly slept that night, but morning brought her escape from an unexpected place: the bank. Clara worked there, a job that gave her some sense of freedom and independence. The hum of printers, the quiet chatter of clients, the steady rhythm of counting bills. It was ordinary and predictable, but she loved it. That morning, Mark showed up with 2 coffees in hand. He worked a couple of cubicles down, in loans. He was in his early 30s, married, and handsome in a way that drew attention without him even trying. He and Clara had started working on the same day 7 months earlier, surviving that first week of endless paperwork and dull training videos together. He slid one cup onto her desk with a grin. "What's this?" she asked, raising her brow. There was a promotion at the Daily Grind. Buy one, get one free. Clara sipped, feeling instantly energized. "Aren't I the lucky one? You should have given it to your wife." "She got a promotion too," he said. Took one to her coworker as well. Mark's wife was a teacher. He didn't talk about her much, and though Clara noticed the tan line on his finger, the ring was hardly there. "Well, cheers." She bumped her coffee with his, the gesture stirring the memory of the night before, a dull grief rising in her chest. She sipped her coffee, keeping her eyes down. Mark noticed something was off. "What's the matter? Is it bitter?" "No," she said. "It's nothing." Mark smiled. "All right, well, I'll tell you what. Let's have lunch today, and if you still feel the same, you can unload on me. I can be quite the therapist." She nodded. "Okay." When lunch hour came, Clara had been so busy making deposits, processing credit card payments, and answering a slew of customer questions that she completely forgot about Mark. "You ready?" he said. "4?" Clara said, narrowing her eyes. "You see, you already feel much better. You forgot about that thing that was bothering you this morning?" He added a playful smile. "And also about our lunch date." "Oh God, I'm sorry." Clara brought her hand to her forehead. "What are you hungry for?" "I was thinking, Morning Star Cafe, a couple of cheeseburgers, maybe some milkshakes, but it's up to you, wherever you want to go." "Yeah, that sounds delicious, actually. Let me just finish balancing my drawer. I'll meet you there in about 10? Mark nodded. "Just don't keep me waiting." "I won't, I promise." The Morning Star Cafe sat just half a block away from the bank, its windows glowing with the strong light of the mid-afternoon. Clara arrived 15 minutes past the hour. When Mark spotted her stepping through the door, his eyes lit up instantly. "I thought you weren't coming." "I just got held up by a customer. Did you order?" "I was waiting for you," he said. The waiter, a tall, scrawny boy who couldn't have been more than 19, stopped by their table, took their drink and food order and disappeared into the kitchen. "So what was bothering you this morning?" Mark finally said. It seemed like it was serious. "It was nothing," Clara said with a sigh, masking the fact that her lack of intimacy was slowly destroying her. "Just, couples stuff." "Well, tell me," he insisted, the corner of his mouth twisting into a warm, friendly smile. "I'm married too, you know. I can probably give you some solid advice." Clara thought about it. How could I tell him about Daniel's problem? I can't do that to my husband. But what if Mark knows of things Daniel could do to not... No, I can't. It's none of his business. "Really? It's nothing." Clara let out a small, nervous chuckle. "I'm probably just blowing it out of proportion." She quickly turned the questioning back on him. "What about you? How are things with your wife? Melanie, right?" Before Mark could answer, the waiter brought their drinks. He set them in front of them, placed napkins on the table, and slid into the back again. He took a small sip, nodding. "Yeah, no complaints there. We're pretty okay." "Just pretty okay," she said. "Not wonderfully okay?" They both laughed. Clara sipped from her drink. "I'm a good therapist, too. You can tell me if there's any trouble in paradise." "Well, just the normal stuff, like you and your husband. I guess we have our disagreements, but it's nothing that we can't handle." Clara nodded. When their food arrived, they ate in silence. Every so often, their eyes met across the booth, a brief exchange of glances and raised brows that said, "This is good." That night, Clara was determined to put an end to all her frustration, the restless pacing, the overthinking, the way her heart twisted every time she longed for her husband's affection. Tonight, she would face it head-on. Daniel sat propped against the headboard, scrolling absently through his phone while the TV flickered across the room. He was in boxer briefs and a white t-shirt. Clara emerged from the bathroom, steam curling around her as she stepped out, freshly showered. Her breast swayed and bounced with every step she took. It wasn't until she leapt onto the bed, crawling toward her husband with the sleek confidence of a panther in heat, that he finally tore his eyes from the screen. What are you doing, honey?" Daniel managed, his voice unsteady. Clara closed the distance between them, straddling him, her body so close he could feel the warmth of her breasts just inches from his face. "What does it look like I'm doing?" "Not tonight, honey. She silenced him with her chest, pulling him close until words no longer mattered. He sucked on her nipples like a hungry infant. The world around them faded, replaced by the quickening of breath and the heat that rose between them. She wanted nothing more than to be taken by her husband in every way possible. Clara reached behind her, seeking his manhood. Before she could draw him in, Daniel stiffened beneath her. A sharp, strangled gasp tore from his throat as his muscles locked around his wife's body. He shut his eyes and bit his lips, his body shuddering in a way that made her freeze. "I'm so sorry, honey," Daniel groaned. "It's okay, babe." Clara wrapped her hand around him, stroking up and down. She would give him pleasure, even if her own remained a distant promise. Daniel let out a low sound, half relief, half release, and she felt the milk ooze from him, warm, creamy. When it was over, he lay still, his breathing uneven, the silence between them louder than before. This went on for several nights. Clara told herself she could mend what was broken within him if she could just make him comfortable with her touch. That somehow he would find the strength like he had many nights ago, on their wedding day, to claim her as his one more time. But most importantly, she wanted to climax an orgasm like he did every time she touched him. She never did. And somewhere along the way, she stopped feeling loved. Her frustration only grew deeper, like roots twisting unseen beneath the surface. And with it, her resentment took hold. She finally told him they needed to talk about it openly, but Daniel refused to listen. "There's nothing to talk about, Clara," he said, raising his voice. "Daniel, you need to see a doctor." "What for? I don't think there's—" He opened his mouth, searching for the right words, but none came. Clara caught the tight movement of his jaw, the quiet grind of his teeth. "I'm fine," he finally managed. "We're fine." He stood up and left, the air shifting with his absence, and Clara found herself alone in the kitchen once again. The following morning, all she could think of was the end of the day. She had no intention of going home. She wanted a drink, anything to blur the edges. But more than that, she wanted to get fucked. By her husband, by anyone. She caught sight of Mark leaving his cubicle. He glanced her way and she nodded, mouthing a quiet hey. He smiled faintly, gave a quick wave and kept walking, the papers in his hands fluttering slightly as he passed. "What's on your mind?" he asked on his way back. "Nothing. Why?" "You made a mistake on one of the loan payments." "Shit, I did?" Mark nodded. "That's the first mistake you've made in almost a year. Is everything okay?" "No," she said. "You think we can go to lunch and talk about it? I really need a therapist right now." "Yeah, sure." Mark checked his wristwatch. 30 minutes. The Morning Star?" "Sure. I'll see you there." The Morning Star was quieter than usual, the soft hum of conversation replaced by the clinking of coffee cups and the low buzz of the espresso machine. Clara sat in a booth tucked into the back corner, tracing her fingertip along the rim of her mug. When she saw Mark step through the door, she lifted her hand and waved him over. "Rough night?" he asked gently. "You have no idea," she groaned, covering her face. "Holy shit," Mark said. "It looks like you're going through it. What the hell happened?" "Before I tell you," Clara said, raising both index fingers like a salesperson about to reveal a bargain. "Can you answer me one question?" Mark looked at her, puzzled. "Sure." "How many times do you make love to your wife?" The question caught him by surprise. He opened his mouth, but before he had time to reply, she added, "A week." What kind of question is that, Clara?" "I don't know," she said, looking away and shaking her head, searching for the right words. "I just want to know how many times you fuck your wife." She had barely finished speaking when the waiter appeared at their booth, as if he'd been waiting for his cue. With an awkward grin, he said, "I'll, give you both a little more time," before hastily retreating. Once the waiter was far enough, Mark said, "Is that why you asked me here for lunch, to talk about my sex life?" Clara looked him dead in the eyes. "Just answer the goddamned question, Mark." As soon as she heard herself, she held up her hand. "I'm sorry. It's not my intention to pry, it's just that I don't know what else to fucking do." The silence between them could have drawn blood. Mark finally opened his mouth, drawing in a deep breath. He held it for a moment, then released it slowly. "Melanie and I have sex maybe twice, 3 times a month." Clara locked eyes with him and said, "Oh my God." "I mean, we're busy," Mark replied. "She's always busy, grading papers, and I take work home too. There's just not enough time in the day." "I didn't mean it like that. You get more action than I do." "Well, how many times do you guys do it?" "Try 0. "In the last month?" "I wish," she said. "In the last year." Mark's eyes widened. "Fuck, you think he's cheating?" Clara chuckled. "He's not cheating. You sure?" "Believe me, I don't think Daniel could if he wanted to." The silence only made the realization even more obvious. Mark raised his eyebrows. "You mean, his soldier is not marching like it used to?" "What are we, 10?" she said, her frustration coming out in droves. "Fine," Mark said through a chuckle. "Is his dick not getting hard?" Clara scratched her head. "It's not even that. My God, I can't believe I'm telling you this." "I think we're way past that, girl," Mark said. "He comes early," Clara said. "So much as I look at him a certain way, and he explodes all over the place." Mark couldn't believe what he was hearing, but he caught the edge in her voice, the kind that came from holding too much in for too long. There was frustration, there was exhaustion, there was the faint thread of something that sounded like heartbreak. "I mean, shit. Yeah, that's rough. Has he gone to the doctor? Or have you guys tried couples therapy?" "Well, why am I here then?" she said, smiling for the first time in what felt like forever. "You told me you were a good therapist." Mark returned the smile. "Honestly, I think I'm out of my league here. You might need to hire real professionals for this." He kept smiling, hoping the joke would make her laugh, ease the tension a little, but it landed flat. Clara only nodded, the smile she'd worn moments ago fading away. "I didn't mean it like that," Mark said. "I'm sorry." Clara looked off to the side again. She stared out the window at the passing cars and people drifting along the sidewalk, their lives moving effortlessly forward. Without meeting his eyes, as if her heart had acted before her mind could catch up, she blurted out, "How would you feel about having a fuck buddy?" Mark inhaled sharply and choked, breaking into a fit of coughing he couldn't control. "Shit, I'm sorry, Mark. Don't listen to me. I'm a fucking wreck." Clara stood, offered another quick apology, and stormed out, leaving Mark still wheezing like he might actually need a medic. Clara was grateful it was Friday, 2 whole days without seeing Mark. She still had to steer clear of him for the rest of the afternoon, though, and the thought kept her just a little on edge. All weekend, Clara couldn't stop replaying that stupid question in her head. "What the hell is wrong with me?" she thought. "Why would I even ask him that?" When Monday rolled around, Clara called in sick. She wasn't ready to face the fallout from what she'd done. She told her boss she'd had some bad sushi over the weekend and needed a day to recover. When she returned on Tuesday, Mark was off at a morning training on new loan procedures and regulations. The timing felt like a small stroke of luck. She also managed to avoid him in the afternoon, and through Wednesday morning too, feeling calmer with each hour that passed. He caught her a couple of times watching him from a distance, only for her to look away the moment their eyes met. Finally, he mustered up the courage to walk up to her. "You've been avoiding me," he said, not a question, but a statement that landed like a knife between them. "We have to talk." "There's nothing to talk about, Mark. Come on. You can't just take the pin off a grenade and chuck it at me and not expect a reaction." There was silence for a moment. "Don't you want to hear what I have to say?" Clara just stared at him, unable to form any coherent thought in her mind. Just then, their boss came out of his office and called Mark over. Before walking away, Mark looked Clara in the eyes as if he was staring into her soul and said, "Yes." Clara just stood frozen, unsure what to do with the grenade Mark had just lobbed back at her. That evening, while Daniel worked late, Clara nursed her third glass of wine, staring at her phone longer than she should have. She finally gave in and texted Mark, a little feeler text, just to see if married life hadn't swallowed him whole. "Hey, did you finish reviewing Mrs. Smith's loan application?" He immediately texted her a smile face emoji, followed by, "No, I didn't. My wife's not home, by the way." "I don't know what I'm doing," she replied. "Please forgive me. I can meet if you'd like. Melanie won't be home for a while." She waited a while before she typed, "You know where Heritage Park is? See you in 15, he texted immediately. Heritage Park sat at the end of a winding residential street. There was a narrow walking trail curved around a small man-made lake where ducks drifted lazily beneath the willows. On weekends, the tennis courts filled with chatter and the clink of rackets, while the playground echoed with kids' laughter. But late in the evening, it was empty and quiet. Only the lamplight, which poured through the oaks in soft gold, caught on the pond's surface like glass. There was no one around except a lonely jogger finishing his late workout. As Clara pulled into the parking lot, she saw Mark's sedan parked very conspicuously under a lamppost. She parked next to him, and he immediately jumped out of his car and into her SUV. "Hey," he started, but before he could say another word, Clara reached up, grabbed his face, and pulled him into a kiss. It was sudden, almost desperate, her hands trembling slightly against his jaw. For a heartbeat, he froze. Then he kissed her back, matching her urgency. The world around them fell away. She lifted his shirt while he undid her pants. "Are you sure you want to do it here? Just shut up and fuck me." She crawled to the back of her SUV and he followed. The air between them felt charged, reckless and real. For once she stopped thinking about consequences, about right or wrong. All she wanted to do was quiet the ache that had been building inside her for far too long. He removed her panties and she pulled down his pants, surprised at how hard he was. She gently wrapped her hand around him, expecting him to explode in ecstasy like her husband. But it didn't happen. Satisfied and hungry, she guided him into her, and when she felt him slip in, she let out a breathed sigh. With every breath, with every stroke, she lost herself in the moment. When it was over, they sat in silence, breathless, the air thick with heat and regret. Neither spoke. Words would only cheapen what had just happened. They dressed quickly, avoiding each other's eyes, both aware of the line they'd crossed. Yet beneath the guilt, Clara felt something she hadn't in a long time. She felt wanted, desired. Mark left first, his taillights fading into the distance. Clara lingered a few minutes longer, trying to steady her breathing before driving home, where the weight of what she'd done, and her husband, awaited her.